Now, a topic that needs attention but hasn't been talked about much in these times is if children are overeducated. A study shows that 60% of the people asked this question think that this is negative. They think that someone can't be overeducated. Now, what does this term actually mean? Let's take it step by step. Over means something is extra, and educated means having a good level of knowledge. Now, if you combine these two together, we get that if a person was, hypothetically speaking, overeducated, he would have extra levels of knowledge. Now, in my opinion as well, someone can't be overeducated. We don't know exactly, but the human brain can take up to 74 terabytes just in the cerebral cortex. That is 74 million megabytes. I repeat, 74 million. Remember, the first ever computer, the IBM 350, only had about 5 megabytes or so. We can store 14.8 million times more information than the first computer. My point is that the human brain can store a lot of information. We, as people, need to remember a lot of things like important dates, streets, memories, telephone numbers, prices, people, and so on and so forth. Even the basics like walking, talking, and even breathing need to be stored somewhere, right? But still, there is a lot more free space to be occupied with useful information about cells or trigonometry or remembering the elements of the periodic table. Why not? Yeah, even I don't believe myself. Children are taught a lot of useless information in school, like the ones I listed above. In my opinion, children should be taught basic things, like reading, writing, four-function math. What? You don't know what four-function math is? Okay, that is addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division. Okay, and back to the list, and critical thinking. That adds up to the equivalent of third to fourth grade education. I get that school is there so people are taught how to think. Albert Einstein himself once said education is not the learning of facts, but the training of the mind to think. And I completely agree with that. Beyond basic stuff, a child should have complete freedom as to what he is learning from there onwards. Google CEO said that education should change dependent on the tech world. Students learn all kinds of information which sometimes isn't even up to date. Now that we talked about Google, let's do an experiment, shall we? If you search on Google, on this Google, school makes me, you would expect that autocomplete would give us something like smart or school prepares me for my future. But to the surprise of no one, the first autocomplete that we get is school makes me depressed. Is that coincidence? Let's get another one. Cry. Okay. That's another interesting one that pops up. My point is that out of 10 autocompletes, 7 are sad, 1 is a genuine one is a joke, and the rest, which is the only one, okay, is about happiness. School should not be something that puts people in depression or gives children anxiety. I understand how history is important. We need to see the mistakes that past people did so we have a lower chance to do them on our own. There were massive things that changed the world forever, like Hitler having a passionate hate for Jews, or how Christopher Columbus went on a journey to discover India, but a mathematical error led to the discovery of North America. Geography is also important. Everyone needs to know about their country, at least. These are all things that are part of the general knowledge. But children don't need to learn about who has married George Washington or what he had for dinner in his final day. Now let's take a look at an educational system which has been praised and written about for years. Yes, I'm talking about Finland's one. It has initiated over the years a number of novel and simple changes that have completely revolutionized their educational system. They outrank the United States and are gaining on Eastern Asian countries. One of the changes that they made is the lack of standardized testing. Filling in little bubbles or answering pre-canned questions is a memory for them. What often happens is that students cram everything that they learned, spit it out on the test, and then they'll forget it right after the teacher took the paper. Not in Finland. Every student is graded on an individualized basis and grading system set by their teacher. Finland's only exception to this is something called the National Matriculation Exam, which is a voluntary test for students at the end of an upper secondary school, equivalent to American high school. Finnish students also go by the premise cooperation, not competition. Now, I get that competition is good. Let's face it, real winners compete against themselves. Ironically, this attitude has put them at the head of the international pack. Their system doesn't worry about artificial or arbitrarily merit based systems. What that means is there are no top performing schools or teachers. It's not an environment of competition, instead, cooperation is the norm. Finnish teachers also have a relaxed attitude to learning and the calm pace of the lessons. Those two also transfer to the students. I think that started a chain reaction. As the teacher has a relaxed attitude, the children now have the same one, and they could potentially calm down their parents. What is also noticeable is the emphasis on chalk and talk, and the relatively unstructured lessons. In a brief discussion with the teachers, all of them stressed the importance of encouraging independent learning and seem to view themselves primarily as facilitators for this. Most of the students in the world could describe their life at school as stressed. There have been many student exchange sessions between America and Finland. That's an experiment where pupils from two different countries get to learn about each other's experiences with schooling. The Finnish quickly remarked the way that Americans view school. First, you need to perform well in high school so you can get into a college of choice, so you can get a good job, to pay the massive student debt if you are in the UK or USA, and even buy a house because, after all, we are humans, so you can raise a family and live a happy life. Notice how the happy part is at the end? Everyone is promised a good life full of joy after they finish school, but the cold hard truth is that just half actually get that good job that they dreamt about in class. When you get a job, you'll be happy is a phrase that we are all familiar with. By the time a person is 21 ish and they've never experienced joy, it's almost like they don't know how to experience happiness. They are now starting in preschool because little children are not productive or smart enough. They are rejected out of preschool classes because they are not productive enough or didn't perform well until that age. So, in conclusion, what did we learn? We learned that the Finnish educational system is overall less stressed. We learned that the Finnish educational system is overall less stressed than the other ones, and students these days are depressed because of school, and something needs to change. Now, my opinion on this subject is yes, children are in fact overeducated. If we view this term as overstressed because of overeducation. Now, in the making of this article, I stumbled upon a story that I want to tell you. A man came from a family of overachievers. Okay, he was an A grade student his entire life. Even though he graduated over 40 years ago, his average percentage score has not been beaten. 4 years! Can you imagine? Because of his extraordinary marks, he received an impressive bursary that allowed him to study engineering for free. That covered his expenses and even bought him a new car. Directly after his master's degree, he was drafted into the army where he was placed in the Signal Corps, radio communication. And within a year, he was promoted because of his extraordinary skills with basically any electronic or electric equipment. After the whole army thing went over, he quickly found himself designing missiles and doing the programming on them. Fast forward a couple of months, he's a rocket scientist with an IQ of over 150. Remember, Einstein, that we talked about earlier, had an IQ about 160. So he was pretty smart. He reads an entire book when he comes home after a long day of work, and in weekends, he either reads 3 or 4 books or teaches himself a new programming language for fun. He thinks that TV isn't educational enough and too expensive. Now, he took part in a quiz night. These are common things in America. There were 11 other teams participating, of which each team had 6 geeky know-it-all members. All teams had 6 members except for him. He beat he beat every single one of them. He took first place that night and got up from the table at the restaurant that they were playing without paying the bill. He sat there for 3 hours in a restaurant without ordering anything. Why, you may ask? Because all these years of education taught him that spending money is bad. Now, that doesn't seem that bad, does it? Well, no. He is the kind of guy to drive a car for 21 years straight and replace it when the cost of the repair exceeds double the value. He still wears his 40-year-old green jersey from school and the same pairs of jeans. When he's being bought new clothes, he refuses to wear them, saying that he has enough clothes. He doesn't give money to charities, he doesn't treat himself, even though he's a millionaire. All that school taught him that everything that requires money being paid is a bad thing. He refuses to go to restaurants where he has to talk to more than one person. That's right, school taught this guy how to be antisocial. He now can't talk to others. That doesn't affect him, but the child that he had. She got joked on as she never gets new things. Her parents got divorced, and this man treated it as an opportunity for more studying. In my books, that's a bad thing. You can be a millionaire and a rocket scientist, but I consider myself better than you for having a successful and joyful family. And on that note, thanks for your attention. Goodbye.